Here are 5 non-lethal torture methods of the Old World. Number 5. Strapato. The strapato, also known as the ropes, is a torture where victims' hands are tied behind their back and hoisted up by a rope tied to their wrists. Sometimes weights were even added to the body to intensify the pain. This kind of torture would generally not last more than an hour without rest, as the stress and sheer amount of pain it caused could result in the unintentional death of the victim. While it shows no external injuries, it can cause long-term nerve, ligament and tendon damage. A variation known as squassation is similar, but a series of sudden drops are added while raising the victim. The painful jerk would predictably cause major damage, often leading to broken shoulders. In the Vietnam War, the ropes was one of several torture methods used by the North Vietnamese army on captured soldiers at the Hoa Lo prison, also known as the Hanoi Hilton. This torture, in conjunction with the terrible conditions inside the prison, would prove to be far more deadly than it otherwise would be. Number 4. The Heretics Fork. The Heretics Fork was a very odd, double-sided, dual-pronged fork that was placed between the breastbone and throat, just under the chin and secured with a leather strap around the neck. The person was then left for long periods of time, suspended in an upright position, so the victim couldn't take the pressure off their neck. Because of the vertical suspension, it had the intended effect: that person wearing the fork couldn't fall asleep, because the moment their head dropped with fatigue, the prongs pierced their throat and chest. Traditionally, the fork was used by the Inquisition, and was given to blasphemers, people who spoke the Lord's name in vain, or even people simply accused of lying. Number 3. Shrews Fiddle. Although not as physically traumatic as the previous examples, the Shrews Fiddle was a kind of portable pillory, originally used in the Middle Ages. It was a way of punishing people for being a public nuisance, anything from simply bickering to getting in a fistfight. The Shrews Fiddle was made out of 2 pieces of wood, fitted with a hinge and a lock at the front, with a hole for each hand and one for the person's neck. Often a bell would be attached also, to alert nearby townspeople that the locked person would be approaching, so they could be publicly mocked and humiliated. Punishment wasn't always suffered alone though. Another version, called the double fiddle, was made. 2 people could be locked together face to face, forcing them to talk to each other and resolve whatever problem they had, before they could be released. Number 2. Scolds bridle. The scold's bridle, sometimes called a witch's bridle, was also an instrument of public humiliation. Originating in England and Scotland in the 15th century, and mostly used on women considered to be nags and gossipers. It was an iron muzzle in an iron framework that enclosed a person's head. A fitted flat disc of iron was slid into the mouth, often with a spike facing down and locked in place on the front of the iron mask. It functioned to keep the wearer from speaking entirely, and cause enough psychological trauma to scare and intimidate the wearer. The scold's bridle was overwhelmingly used on women, on request from their spouse or other family members. It wasn't uncommon for a bell to be attached to draw in crowds, and the wearer was often led around by a leash, to add to the humiliation. Number 1. The iron chair. While no doubt causing a large amount of pain, deceptively the iron chair relied mostly on its psychological effects rather than its physical. It was common to have the victim strapped to the chair, and made to watch the torture of another person, in order to extract information and force confessions. The chair was a simple idea, but very effective. A victim would be tied down in the chair, with fixed spikes riddling the chair's surface and puncturing the skin. If they did not cooperate, the victim would be tied down tighter, digging the spikes deeper into their flesh. A popular variation of the iron chair was called the Chinese torture chair, because of how common it was in China the 17th through 19th centuries. Though the Chinese torture chair is slightly different, it was used in the same psychological way as the European version. It was made from wood with 12 steel blades in the arms, back and where the feet rest. Torture with the iron chair could go on for hours or even days, and although the chair did not necessarily cause death itself, as the spikes did not penetrate vital organs, and kept blood loss to a minimal, the victims would often suffer terrible infections from the dirty spikes, sometimes resulting in unintentional death from the torture. That's 5 non-lethal torture methods of the Old World. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one.